bardzo krótkiej przyszłości może się okazać, że osoby, które rozmawiają ze sobą, wysyłają sobie śmieszne linki lub robią jakiekolwiek takie rzeczy, które są uznawane dzisiaj za normalne, mogą być po prostu powodem, dla których oni zostaną skazani.
Hello there. The European Union will spy on all of our conversations. But will it actually? When it comes to chat control, as this new controversial EU law is commonly known, there are many myths surrounding it. I will attempt to debunk them without appealing to emotions, something unnecessary in these situations. Let's go! What is chat control? It is a set of regulations aimed at combating CSAM, child sexual abusive materials. The European Union, or rather a certain part of it, has been trying to push some form of it through since 2022. As it turns out, doing this requires infringing upon the basic rights of the whole society, especially the right to privacy. To directly quote the document itself, the processing of users' personal data for the purpose for detecting, reporting and removing online child sexual abuse has a significant impact on users' rights and can be justified only in view of the importance of preventing and combating online child sexual abuse. As a result, the decision of whether to engage in these activities, in principle, cannot be left to the providers. It rather pertains to the legislator. I'll allow myself to try and translate some of these legalese. What is this about? If the ordinance is accepted in its current form, the rights granted by it will give the membership countries' governments the necessary tools to scan and moderate content sent via, for example, internet communicators. This includes the encrypted ones, where technically this isn't possible, but nobody cares. Their providers are to make it happen, and that's it, under threat of heavy fines. Besides, this isn't about just communicators. The context is much wider. In practice, this can mean that all email providers, VPNs, or pretty much all encrypted communication channels, including business ones, will have to somehow detect and report all images, video, or links wherever there is suspicion they present CSAM or other violence directed at children. These reports will then be processed and analyzed at the central level by one entity with unprecedented powers shared by the whole European Union. To play devil's advocate for a moment, which is very hard in this case, and it makes me itch all over, I will, however, try to find some pros of this whole solution. One would definitely be the objective. Combating such content is a goal that needs no discussion. It has to be done. That's it. No arguments there. But that's where they run out of arguments for this solution. Because, come on, not like this. Privacy of communication renders the possibility of analyzing the content moot. It's mutually exclusive. Mostly, it's pretty much technically impossible. You'd have to convince the entire internet to forfeit encryption mechanisms or allow every service a backdoor entrance available, theoretically, only to law enforcement agencies. And as we've learned over decades of experiences, if something has a backdoor, someone will eventually access it without authorization. Additionally, the EU's politicians are to be excluded from this law. As you can see, privacy is an elite privilege. Only the plebs are under surveillance. Just unbelievable hypocrisy. To be a bit more serious, it's a bad idea for many reasons. I mean, there are many ways to sidestep these regulations. These often aren't very legal, and we'll see more of it if this law is implemented. For example, one could use homemade decentralized communicators, ones whose mechanisms might raise some serious questions. They'll be used by criminals to hide from the radars of law enforcement, and they'll definitely work it out. But someone with no bad intentions, who only wants to protect their privacy, will be thrown into one bag with the criminals, forced to use the same solutions. Because the current communicators aren't compatible with such a law, and if they don't obey, they'll most likely have to leave the union market. Signal, for example, loudly claims they would rather leave than obey. After all, if they grant such permissions to one government, others will demand the same. Meanwhile, some will just take it themselves without asking, just breaking the security of the whole mechanism. As a result, rather than raise general safety of society, this law will reduce it. But that's only the beginning. The implementation of such law equals the total end of privacy. All of our correspondence would be automatically searched and analyzed without the need for any decision by the courts. All this happening directly on our devices, which theoretically would scan anything we send or receive it to check if it's legal or not. You send someone a suggestive photo or receive one yourself? If there is a sliver of a chance there's someone underage on it, law enforcement will get their hands on it. I mean, it's not just photos. You send your girlfriend or boyfriend a spicy message. If the filter classifies it in some abstract way as a conversation with someone underage, because you're into that sort of play, I don't judge, then someone else will surely read it. You send somebody a meme or a stupid, insensitive joke, but still, just a joke, and you'll get a not very kind visit asking lots of questions. And someone might have a very different sense of humor than you. I mean, this sounds like some sick dystopia we see in the movies. Mind you, this is assuming the law will only work the way it's described. It wouldn't be hard to imagine a situation where some government with authoritarian leanings feels tempted to abuse these mechanisms to make life harder for its opponents. Important side note, so don't get paranoid yet. In the proposition, nothing suggests something like that would even be technically possible. But it's very tempting to expand access once granted further. However, I need to point out that the project itself can be interpreted in few ways. What I've presented in this material is my own point of view, shared by most media and security specialists. Of course, which maybe won't be much of surprise for you, the EU sees the whole thing a bit differently. They claim in Brussels that the law in no way wants to spy on general communication. Rather, companies would scan only for materials anonymously portraying child abuse and only following a warrant by the court or some independent authority. The whole process would have been overseen by data protection institutions, while users could appeal and demand compensation. Brussels also highlight that such activities are already being voluntarily conducted by tech companies who help with detecting crimes. The Union just wants to standardize and regulate all this. Why are there two such different interpretations? Probably because the media are talking about the ordinance from 2022, available on the European Parliament's website. Does the EU have access to a newer, different project? I have no idea. But the information chaos created around this case is definitely not helping. So, if I may give the EU some pointers, then apart from absolutely advising against implementing this law, I'd like to suggest working on the messaging a bit, because there's nothing clear about this. There's only older documentation. After stuff like ACTA and other adventures, it shouldn't come as a shock that people expect the worst will happen. But where are we right now? And where are we going? This whole project is nothing new. It's been coming back in various editions since 2020. Regulations were temporarily implemented in 2021, which for a limited time allowed service providers to voluntarily scan messages to combat materials featuring underage persons in the previous mentioned circumstances. However, that was not obligatory, nor was the mentions of any kind of encrypted communication. This changed only a year later in 2022, when the European Commission presented the Parliament and European Council with the project assuming mandatory detection of such content, including encrypted cases. The project was met with wide and deserved criticism, mostly from citizen organizations, but also some of the membership countries. In June 2024, there was meant to be a vote on this project, but it was removed from agenda since it didn't achieve the necessary majority. A minority of membership countries stood their ground, ensuring the project had no chance of moving forward. Besides, a bit earlier, the European Human Rights Tribunal ruled, although it has to be said in a different case, that weakening end-to-end encryption in democratic societies should not be necessary. Another attempt will take place in December to gain the required majority supporting the project failed. Service providers who base their products on respecting online privacy have a lot to say here as well. Secure communicators, Signal, Trima, and others have scathing critics for the very foundations of the project. And you'd think this should be the end of it, but there were still discussions and deals conducted backstage. Italy and Portugal supported the project, while Germany remains undecided. And their uncertainty played a crucial role in this case, because Berlin's decision could swing the project's fate in either direction. In the summer, the current EU leader, Denmark, has filled another project about implementing chat control, though this time in a slightly different form. The vote was supposed to take place on October 14th, but it was cancelled due to gathering a blocking minority. But is this the end of chat control? No, because Denmark will still attempt to convince the dissenting countries, including Poland, to change their minds. But recently, we've gained an unexpected ally in the fight. The previously undecided Germany initially were to support the project, only to quickly change their mind and staunchly oppose it. So, even though the battle was won, I have no doubt that the project will come back in time, just under a different name and with different foundations. What to do and how to live? In my opinion, this is a bad project that in this current form should go straight to the bin. But can you do anything to oppose it? As an ordinary average citizen? Yes? Write to your representative in the European Parliament, especially if you live in a country which supports chat control and you have voting rights. It won't hurt if you remind your politicians that this is exactly what you want. Make sure you have a backup communication plan. If these solutions get implemented or it's at least close to happening, I will definitely tell you a few methods how to do that. We can either have privacy or can have chat control. The two are not compatible. And by the way, if you're looking for an inexpensive VPS, we just launched a tinybox.sh. Prices start from just $10 a month. You can check it out yourself in the link down below. And that's all for today. Thank you for your attention and see you next time.